So Castlevania Lords of Shadows came out in 2010, right? Was it 2010?
I believe it was 2010.
And it was a reboot to an older series and trying to kind of put its foot in a hack and slash way instead of a more traditional RPG slash exploring slash backtracking through a dungeon castle thing. And it was a gothic, feel to it more than usual, and definitely more of a Western approach. The characters looked more so, but it had help of Kojima, the famous Metal Gear creator, and it definitely emphasized on story a little bit in between all the crazy fighting. And we're here today, Slasher and I, to discuss what we think can improve in the overall game and make Castlevania 2 Lords of Shadows even better.
Yes.
So we're going to start with the story, and I think with the story, what right away can improve, as Slasher was telling me, is the pacing.
Yes.
And I think the issue was, it was just like there was a story there, and sometimes it was really heavy, but it was just so separated from each other.
Who are you?
I am Gabriel. I have traveled here seeking the Guardian of the Lake.
You are from the Order?
Yeah, I mean, you had cutscenes that gave you the story aspect at times, but then they just relied too much on those in between the levels with the narrator of Patrick Stewart talking, and it was like you're getting a lot of details about characters and your character through that. And I mean, I understand they probably did it because you do go around a lot of different environments in the game, and you're hopping around. I mean, you fly on a fucking bird to get to one place, and I mean, there was kind of a disconnect there. And I think if they can take that in the story and kind of smooth that out so the story's more coherent and not as disjointed, you should have a great story.
I completely agree, and I felt like, especially the first half, wasn't as well crafted. Second half, and once you got to the vampires, it gets more interesting, and the ending was just awesome. But I mean, it's a long action game, and that definitely pacing is an important thing. So I totally agree. Like, the story didn't catch on to me till about half of the way through the game. Now, graphic-wise, I don't think the game has to really improve its graphic in terms of power too much. And environment-wise, it did a pretty good job, but there were some levels or chapters, I guess you can say, that you were in the same area for like 4 or 5 chapters. And, well, that's kind of cool, because, all the old Castlevanias like the castle and dungeon look. Someone like myself who likes different environments, that kind of got boring after a while.
Yeah, I mean, it did, but I guess it's just graphically, I really don't see much of improvement. Now, I know a lot of people at the time said there was some kind of weird stuttering thing going on when you would fight, and I know some people complained about the frame rate, but honestly, I really never had an issue with that at all.
Well, I did play it on the PS3. Did you play it on the PS3?
Yeah, I played it on the Xbox.
I heard the only real big issue was when the skeletons, when there were so many on screen. That was the only time I really heard anybody actually complain about that.
But that's just like one minor. I mean, I do think I remember there was a part where they talked about a bunch of skeletons and it could slow down. But I mean, that was a minor part in the entire game.
Yeah.
So I mean, really, graphically though, I just want to see them. I want to see them keep to kind of their style because it was really pretty and colorful, but also dark and gothic and evil looking.
Yes, I agree, and I agree. Just really kind of keep that style and more enemies. And definitely even more flashy attacks because now you are Dracula, so I expect you to be able to, shoot some Super Saiyan type attacks out now.
Suck that blood, mofo. Suck that blood.
Monster Star Productions.
And then gameplay-wise, I think that it got a lot of it right. You felt like a strong, badass motherfucker. At times, though, it felt like it was trying to be God of War with some of the boss fights, and not so much feel like I didn't feel like Darksiders tried really with the boss fights to be God of War, whereas I felt Castlevania, when you're not fighting normal enemies, didn't feel anything like God of War. Just when the boss fights happened, and not so much the quick time events, it's just the way that the fights ended. And now that you're Dracula, I expect more fights like the final fight to happen. The final fight,
really crazy
epic.
Stuff.
Yeah,
Really crazy. And they also kind of seem like a lot of people notice they took a lot from Shadow Colossus, the whole climbing on top of things and doing that. And I like fighting big bosses in games, so that's not a problem. And I like cool finishers, but I think all they need to do really in that aspect is kind of maybe do something that just kind of gives it their own spin to it a little bit more, gets to stand out on its own and not look like it's copying a bunch of things. That, granted, if you want to say this game's a copying, it's one of the best damn copiers out there.
Fuck yes.
Seriously, to me, this game had taken a series that has grown stale too many, the Castlevania series, and revamped it. And has gained much interest again. So. Yeah.
And saying that I do like the 2D Castlevanias, but like Slasher, I felt like this series just wasn't bringing me back. Like, yeah, I'll play that Game Boy Advance one or DS one. But when this one came out, I was kind of iffy about it. IGN gave it 7.5. I popped it in, literally could not stop playing for like 4 hours. It just has this real dark tone, but as said, wonderful looking world and the combat.
The 3D Castlevania games have been severely lackluster, and I remember, even to this day, when I first played Devil May Cry, I said if they could take this kind of gameplay and make Castlevania like this, sort of, just take this idea, this fighting and the castle environment, they could have a really good idea, but they stuck to these kind of almost Dynasty Warrior-ish 3D fighting action-adventure games with hardly any major adventure elements to them. So I think that this has gotten it right, and they just need to add to it. And I do want to comment, the length of Castlevania Lords of Shadow was long as shit.
Yeah.
For an action game.
And I don't mind they could keep that. Cause,
no, they can keep it.
Yeah, that was actually a really, really good idea compared to, let's be honest, God of War takes... I literally can beat God of War 2 in like 6 hours.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see a nice long adventure. If I had to talk real fast about the puzzles, keep them. I enjoyed them. Add a few more maybe. Add a little bit harder. Some were just ridiculous, like that arrow one made no sense. Yeah. But most of them were really good. If I had an improvement anywhere else, it would be the platforming. I would like more of it. I didn't think it was bad in this, just very little of it, in my opinion. Just add more and more fun, because Castlevania should be also about platforming, and I think if they improve that, we can even get, better game.
And please keep the Easter eggs for like the previous games, like whether it's a musical track or an environment or something, just to give us little old time Castlevania fans, a smile and a nod.
Exactly. And really fast, just to kind of what hopes and dreams I guess we can talk about is what we want to kind of see else. I would my perspective, I would love to play as two characters. The only reason I'm saying that is because the new trailer does show, obviously Gabriel as Dracula, and it also shows, I think, who that is Alkert, or however you say that dude's name. And that would be awesome to play as two characters and eventually meeting and fighting. And it's definitely a unique twist on the series. And I think that would be great. And I'm curious to see how they're going to do it, if they do it that way.
Yeah, and I get two vibes from that trailer. Either one, you're gonna play as two characters, or two, you're gonna fight that character, and there's gonna be an epic brawl going on between you two throughout the entire game. Either way it goes, I'm happy. Yeah. I'd like to play as two players, two different characters, but I know that requires totally different move sets and upgrades, so I don't know how they're gonna do that. We don't know enough yet on the game. But either way, I'm happy because it's more Castlevania. They did a great, amazing job with the first Lord of Shadows, and I fully expect Lord of Shadows 2 to just blow us away.
Yep, and that's really it. I think we covered everything we would like to see improved, from story to graphics to gameplay. And it doesn't sound like much, maybe, but these little things will make it one of the best action games of this generation. I already felt that the first one was one of the best, but to make it even better, to make it the best action game, these improvements, honestly, if they add them in, they probably will be the best action game of this generation.
Oh yeah, let's get to some vampire killing, whip slinging.
You know it. And the 3DS one looks good too.
Forgive me, brother.
Just throwing it out there.
Dun, 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 dun.